want to share with you a few minutes on a video, a short documentary. We've shortened it even more. A major news agency out of Europe saw what we were doing, wanted to share the work that we were doing. And so it shows you a little window on what we do and how we built a template that's sustainable within a country. And then I'd like to show you our success story.
Lions in Africa get tuberculosis. Bengal tigers have gotten canine distemper. The critically endangered saiga antelope, 210,000 animals died within a fortnight. Critically endangered wildlife are dying due to diseases they're sharing with dogs and humans. This is happening globally, not just with individual animals, but on a global scale with our fragile endangered populations. I'm Dr. Deborah McCauley. I'm a wildlife veterinarian. We founded VIEW, Veterinary Initiative for Endangered Wildlife, to address the missing piece to conservation, which is wildlife health. We're in Chitwan National Park. It's a World Heritage Park. It is some of the most endangered wildlife in the world here. They have Bengal tigers, 200 Bengal tigers in Chitwan, about 500 to 600 greater one-horned rhinos. They have the critically endangered gharial crocodiles and over 500 species of birds. Tuberculosis is a disease that affects the lungs and causes pneumonia, and it affects people, domestic animals, and wildlife.
Do you have to wrap it at all?
This wound looks great.
Yeah.
It looks so good. Of the 200 elephants in Chitwan, 24% of the elephants were found with tuberculosis, and we found the first case of tuberculosis in a rhino. Tuberculosis is one of the biggest problems on a global scale, and it's shared with all species. We started our program here in Chitwan National Park in a threefold way. We have trained over 200 wildlife professionals on safe capture techniques and disease surveillance. We've also helped with their infrastructure, building a field laboratory, and they're building a wildlife health hospital. And Chitwan National Park is an excellent template to share with the rest of the world how wildlife health can be included into a wildlife conservation package.
Now we are regularly getting a herpes virus infection in young calf below 5 years old. If animal get infected with herpes, the animal will die within 1 day.
Time is running out. This is an urgent issue on a global scale, but we're here to help, and we can do this. Veterinary medicine has the ways for prevention and treatment, and we need to include it on the ground, in the field, to help our endangered wildlife in their native habitat.
So Nepal is a great success story. We built a template, the proof of concept, that we want to be able to bring on a global scale through training, providing infrastructure, and helping do research. We were able to identify the most urgent problems like tuberculosis in rhinos. We saw a major mortality event happening there, and we were able to work with the government to be able to show them how important wildlife health is to incorporate into their conservation package. So what have they done? We helped write a wildlife health national strategy plan that they're going to include on all of their 23 protected areas. And they have a great, robust conservation program in Nepal. And now they're hiring 12 veterinarians throughout their national parks to work and include wildlife health into their conservation. This is the first of its kind. We don't have national wildlife health strategy plans. We barely have a national strategy plan, I think, for people in the US. So Nepal now has a robust program. We won the Ashoka Fellowship because we did it in a way that we can expand globally. Guess what? In the US, we only have 2 wildlife veterinarians for all of our national parks. And VIEW and the work that we're doing is really relevant right now. Why? Because COVID-19 is a pandemic that is spreading across the world. We have 1% mortality. Most people are affected by COVID. And we know that it originated from wildlife, either it be bat soup in a wet market in China or a pangolin, but we know it originated in wildlife and it spread to people. And then that mutation caused a major spread amongst people. But now we're watching it spread to our endangered species. We know that tigers and lions and snow leopards are getting sick from COVID. And we know that it spread to the fur bearers. That now recently over 10 million minks in Denmark were culled, not only because people spread it to minks, but it mutated and it went back to people. This is bad. 75% of new and emerging diseases originates from wildlife. And over 60% of diseases we share with all animals, from anthrax to Ebola to COVID-19. And yet conservation continues to work and approach conservation and endangered and threatened species by important things like habitat encroachment, anti-poaching measures, and climate change. And although those are really important, there is a missing piece to conservation. And I believe the most unaddressed conservation problem right today is not addressing enough wildlife health. There's not enough work being done in the fields, on the grounds, collecting the data to understand what diseases are out there. You know that brucellosis and CWD, chronic wasting disease, is out there, but those are just 2 diseases that affect people. What VIEW looks at is how diseases in domestic animals and people can cause a pandemic, an outbreak, and decrease huge populations in our threatened and endangered species. So we've brought our proof of concept from Nepal through training, research, and infrastructure to the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. And we asked around because we know that there's some work being done, but we know that there's not enough work being done. How can we help? Wyoming Game and Fish approached us and said, we had a major die-off of moose in the Jackson-Teton region in the winter of 2019. 50 of the 200 to 300 moose that live in Jackson died in one winter. Boom. If this continues, that is not sustainable. A lot of the cause of death was attributed to hit by car, but no actual investigation into cause of death was happening because they didn't have a program ready and robust to address that problem. They even found $9 million to build a bridge to help the moose cross the streets, cross the road, so it wouldn't affect their population. And although that's great work and it's really needed, it might not cause and help this problem unless we really know what is the cause of death in individuals. And once we know what's happening in the individuals, we can really know how to help them on a population level. Just to reiterate, it's really important, not only to understand the cause of death, but with veterinary medicine, we have clear measures of prevention and treatment. We know that this is a problem nationally. There wasn't work being done in the Jackson-Teton region on disease, but we know that disease in the northern region and New England is decimating some of the moose populations. Winter tick, for example. Ticks are gorging on moose, causing anemia and hair loss. And that hair loss in the middle of winter is using up a lot of energy and making them starving, and they're dying. In fact, the northern west subspecies of moose is threatened to extinction because their populations are declining. This could happen here in the greater Yellowstone, and we want to make sure that it doesn't happen in our moose population. So as you know, with COVID, you can have a healthy population, but you get a disease that comes in for whatever reason, and it can wipe out big chunks of populations. So what have we done? Well, this is a photograph of our team in the field. The person in the yellow is Dr. Ginger Stout. We're with Wyoming Game and Fish, Montana State University, and USGS. And this is a cow moose in Teton Village. This was this past spring. We immobilized this moose to put on a collar to monitor where the moose are going. We collected samples to look at disease, and we used an ultrasound to look and see if we could see artillery worms. And you'll see in the background here, a Montana State University student counting ticks. USGS is looking to see if winter tick, which is devastating the northern populations, if climate change has an effect on the winter tick and causing the decline in the Jackson region. But we're doing it in a sustainable way, just like we did in Nepal. We're training the folks on the ground, safe capture techniques and immobilization. We're showing them how to collect and process and submit biological samples to the right labs. We're prioritizing the diseases that are most efficient. That's how we work. And we're doing it in a way that's sustainable because we're a tiny organization and we're pretty new. I mean, we're only about 7 years old. And thank you for what a wonderful work that we did in Nepal that we can take globally, but we need to work and be nimble and show what we're doing so that we can go on to address other issues and train other people. And one of the biggest conservation contributions that VIEW is working on is, again, another problem that we saw that we think that we can help fix. Often what happens, I don't know if it was when I worked at Fish, Wildlife, and Parks I saw it, or I was a vet at a zoo, that this information on wildlife health gets lost, gets filed in some cabinet, and nobody gets to really actually utilize it. So we developed an electronic medical record system for wildlife and the stakeholders in the field. How does it work? Much like when you go to a human hospital, you get information inputted into a medical database. So we collect biological samples from moose in the field. We take those samples back to the lab. We input that information into a database system. But what's so cool about our program is it's not just VIEW that's inputting that information, but we can share that with our partners. We can upload information from GPS coordinates to photographs to microscopic images, and we can submit those reports, submit that information to the agencies that need it most, or share it with the partners that we want, either locally or globally. This program is in the development stage, and we pretty much have built most of it, and we're at the tip of the iceberg where we need to push it to the next level to be able for other programs like Teton National Park and Idaho are interested in using WIS. So I just want to leave with you that although there has been a lot of wonderful work in conservation to save habitat, to reduce poaching, to try to combat climate change, unless we address wildlife health, we are potentially left with empty corridors because a pandemic and an outbreak can wipe out populations. Thank you very much. I am here for questions.